Well, thank you, Derek, for joining us today. This is the first of the conversations we're going to be sharing with the participants in the 2020 AUCD Leadership Academy. We have historically, and we had invited you to come in June to Atlanta to be with us in person, and that was obviously postponed, and then we decided to not do it in person at all, but to do it virtually. So we're trying a little bit different way of preserving all the things we thought were really powerful in the first time around. And one of the things is we've had probably 5 or 6 people come in and be interviewed on their leadership journeys. And so thank you for joining us for this one.
Yeah,
And,
I would just say thank you for the invitation. I feel like it is an honor to be able to talk about my leadership journey and to be able to talk to the participants of the Leadership Academy. I'm a graduate of one 2014, and I know what it did for me, and hopefully it does the same for all the others as well.
well, thanks. Well, and so along those lines, how did you start on this journey? What brought you into the work?
Wow. Interestingly enough, it was the loss of a job. And, I was working and leading some diversity efforts for the Department of Mental Health, one of the state of Missouri's largest employer. And we got a new governor, and he had a different vision. And ultimately, they eliminated my position, and it was through networks, it was through relationships, it was through some partnerships that I had an opportunity to interview with an individual that was leading a USET. And so ironically, it was a loss of a job that created this opportunity. So for me, it's very important that you not look at a door closing and only look at that door when it closes, but you also look at those other opportunities that closing that door might provide for you. So that's how I got here, was through the loss of a position.
So did you, sort of formal credentials or informal credentials? What do you think made you the right person at that time?
I think it was both. A lot of it was my background working with and in the area of diversity and equity and inclusion. But it was also, how your work sometimes it speaks for you. I mean, most of the people who were talking to the leadership about me was saying, "Hey, he's a hard worker. He's demonstrated this. I can vouch for his commitment to work and his ethic and all of that." And so I think it was just a combination of both.
So Liz, you wanna ask about?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Derek, for your time. My question is, how do you think the phrase "nothing about us without us" is connected to our work?
Great question. And incidentally, it is just something that I live by. I think that everything that we do should be person-centered. Everything that we do should be with. I don't develop any programs without first having a strong understanding how that will impact the lives of individuals with lived experiences. And when I hear that phrase, "nothing about us without us," it really just triggers in my mind that in any kind of coalition, any kind of committee that I establish, any kind of work that we are doing that is going to impact the lives of individuals, they should have a seat at the table. And not only a seat at the table, but a leadership seat at that table. And so to me, that is something that I always keep in my mind, because I just don't think that we can plan and be effective in anything if we don't have a strong understanding of the individuals with lived experiences.
And then if I can ask another question is about your first 6 months into the job. Um, what were you feeling in your during that period of time?
Well, the first feeling was just a sense of overwhelm. I just felt overwhelmed. You know, you know, being in an associate director role, there were certain things that I did not pay attention to because I was working in partnership with the director. And when I became director, you know, all of those things became my responsibility. Number one, making sure that the 30 staff that were employed at the time that I took over were going to remain employed, because I take that very serious. So having that tremendous amount of pressure to say that now I'm responsible for 30 people, and I don't have a couple of people that I work for. Now I work for 30 people. And so it was kind of overwhelming. But I also felt supported. And I also felt the need to meet with everybody and to learn and to gain the knowledge that they currently had, so that I know that I could be an effective leader for our organization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Derek, in all of this, conflict is inevitable. How do you deal with it?
When I am confronted with conflict, the first thing I do is I seek information. You know, I don't think that we can begin to address issues unless we know the ideology of it, unless we know, you know, what are the factors that are causing the conflict. How do you get all of the information that allows you to begin to think about how to address that issue? And so the first thing that I do is I collect as much information as I can. I become more knowledgeable about the particular situation, and then I seek help. You know, I seek advice as to, you know, the opinions of others, particularly my team. You know, in getting their thoughts collectively, and then making that decision. But seeking the knowledge, seeking a better understanding of what is the beginning of this conflict is the most important part that I think.
So, you know, you've now been in the position a few years, and can you just pick one challenge that you were confronted with, and kind of how did you deal with it?
Yeah, again, being responsible for, we have roughly anywhere from 19 to 20 to 23 grants that we're running at the same time. And one of the first things that I was confronted with was the sunsetting of an initiative called Money Follows the Person, which is in our state my biggest funder. You know, a $1.7 million initiative, and we were told that the funding for that was going to end, and I had roughly 11 staff that were working on that initiative. And so what I had to do was, again, seek as much information as I could to better understand the issue through listening to the staff, acquiring as much knowledge as I can about where the funding streams were coming from, what the funding streams were used for, not being afraid to have tough conversations with staff and really letting them know, that being transparent in that and letting them know where we were, what were the possibilities. And then from collecting all that information, beginning to develop a plan. How do we strategically move forward? We're responsible for a major effort across the state, transitioning individuals from long-term care facilities to community living. And that's the thing that is a priority for us. It's a part of our strategic vision. And so with that funding and without that funding, I had to begin to think about how will we continue those efforts? Who will we partner with? How can we not let the money dictate what we do? And so begin to start replanning based on the information that I acquired, and then actually offered a counter to the agency that was supporting us. And I'm happy to say that today we're still in existence. You know, a number of states shut that work down. We stayed in the work, and ultimately the federal agency, CMS, that was funding us, continued to fund us and gave us more money because other states shut down and they had this money. And so but it was really around just gaining as much knowledge as I could about the particular subject, about the area of focus, and then strategically thinking about how can we move forward with that information.
Derek, what does sunset mean?
You kind of cut out when you asked the question, could you?
What does sunset mean? You mentioned about
Yeah, when I said sunset, I mean like closing it down, ending the program. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
So maybe this was implied in or embedded in your last answer, but we do a lot of work around strengths and leadership, and so what do you see as your strengths in the leadership equation? Just in the and we use an approach, a method of assessing that's the VIA, which is all based on positives, and we, you know, it's a nice approach, but independent of that particular approach, what do you see in yourself?
Yeah, for me, it has always been my ability to communicate, my ability to establish trusting partnerships, relationships, collaborations. I believe, you know, this work is so, I mean, if you try to look at it from an individual perspective, it can be overwhelming, and it's so much work to do, and there's so many areas that we have to focus on, and areas to improve on. And so you can't do this by yourself, and it starts with my staff. You know, number one, having the ability to communicate effectively with them, but also having the ability to put people in the right place. You know, Jim Collins, Going from Good to Great, talks about, you know, how to put the right person in the right seat on the right bus, right? And so it's all of those things. And so I feel like I have that ability to, number one, to effectively communicate, but also to develop trusting and lasting relationships, and also a strength to motivate. You know, you have to create an environment where people feel good about the work that they're doing, and good about coming to work and wanting to work. And so I put a lot of time into really trying to assess our environment, be aware of the things that are going on within my environment, and creating a place that is supporting and accommodating, just like we do for people with disabilities. How do we make sure that we are providing supports and accommodations for everybody to be successful?
So without then sharing what maybe you consider your lesser strengths, how do you, what do you do to sort of protect yourself and your organization from the things that you do less well?
Yeah, I think the what I try to do is I try to make sure that my team is diverse in their perspective, right? I want to hire people that are smarter than me, you know, and I love be around brilliant people. I love to learn from people, and so you know, the first thing that I do is I accept the fact that I don't know everything, and I want my teammates to compliment me. And one of the challenges that I do have is I want to do everything, and I've learned that, you know, to trust and to delegate when I feel necessary, and to utilize the talent that I recruited and the people that I have, and allowing them the space to grow and to be what they can be, and never limiting their abilities based on my beliefs.
That's a. I'll throw this one in there. That I want to hire people who are smarter than me, and that's really easy.
Yeah, that's what it is for me. I'm like, yeah. That's
But with that, tell us something that's happened recently that made you proud.
Oh man, so many things, but I have to say that one of the things that comes to mind is about 2 years ago we created a position for a self-advocate, a guy named Ed Eastbeck, and he's a young African American from Uganda, and he came in as a Lynn trainee, as a consumer Lynn trainee, and my staff, advocated for him and saying, hey, we've got to keep this guy around. He has something. He has that it factor, and but he just needs opportunities. And so went to our HR staff and they said, well, we've never done this before. I was like, is that a reason for us never to do it? And they worked with me. We brought him on as a staff. He's helping out with self-advocate. I wanted a whole self-advocate movement here in the state of Iowa. Didn't have People First chapters and things like that. So he's helping with some leadership in that area. But recently he was awarded, he was nominated for an award through our APSE chapter for his work in employment at the USAID. And that moment for me, for him to be recognized by, his peers, also by people who understand employment for people with disabilities, for him to be recognized for that and nominated for that award was a highlight for me. Sure.
I as a self-advocate and as a person with a disability and as a leader in this network, I really value and thank you for your leadership in that, because I think that takes a lot of courage to hire people and to say, okay, yeah, maybe it won't work out, or maybe it will work out. But if you believe in people, that's what leadership is all about, believing in people.
Absolutely. And I had a thought that came to my mind. We just started these leadership academies for people with disabilities here, and I identified it was 4 African American that have came through that academy, and all of them kind of are looking for guidance, support in many different stages. And what I've made a commitment to do is to meet with them on a regular basis and to just talk about their goals and help them self-regulate, and really kind of talk about self-determination. And really, I just saw them struggling in that area and no one really giving them the time. And so I felt like with my leadership skills, my ability, that I wanted to show them that they are important to me. And I want to also show the university and the hospital too that, I can't talk about employment if I'm not doing it myself, right? And so I want to demonstrate that this is what's possible when you give people opportunities.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Derek, you said you'd been to a similar kind of leadership academy as the folks here. And I don't know if there was anything that anybody said there that stuck with you in a particular way, but if you were to offer words of wisdom or direction or comfort or guidance to the folks that are in this academy. And we've only met with them once, mixed group, different ages, all over across the country, all different identities. It's a great group. And so what would you say to them that might, in addition to what you've already said?
Yeah. I would just say, create your vision and begin to ask what you want, but not only ask what you want, but see yourself in that vision as well. And if you want to be a USET director, put that as a vision for you, put that as a goal for you, start acting as if you are a USET director. I remember being at the University of Missouri, and people would come up to me, and my director even came up to me. He said, "People think you are the director of the USET." I was like, I'm acting like a director. I want to be a director, and so that's good that they see me as a director. But really, I believe that any thought repeated with emotion becomes a belief. And so if those are things that you want, create that vision, believe in that vision, but you got to put the work in. I think our thoughts. It's the thoughts that we have. It's the words that we use, and it's the action that we take that get us to where we want to be at. And so, conceiving it in your mind, believing in it, and then speaking on it, and then taking the action, everything that you need to do to be successful in your journey and in your goals.
I thought I heard you saying conceive, and I'm not sure that everyone will know what that means.
So when you have something that you believe in, that's something that you want, then you go for it, basically. You can believe it, you can achieve it, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Derek. I think this is a great jumping off point for our Leadership Academy participants, and you'll be our first virtual interview. But I'm as we've done the planning for this, I think we've all had sort of just enough experience with the virtual interactions and encounters, and we've said I think we can do this. And I was going to say, based on this chat, I think the interviews can work also. So thank you for your time.
All right, appreciate it again, and good luck with everybody as well.